Hello and welcome to the Blueprint, a Chelsea FC tactics podcast. Seun and I are analysts on X, where we share tactical breakdowns of Chelsea matches and discuss other interesting talking points. In this podcast, we'll be doing the same, diving even deeper into the details. But before we start, how are you doing, sir? We didn't catch you last week, so good to have you back.
It's awesome to be back. I did go back to listen to the pod, and you guys really killed it. You and JJ, you really dissected the Brighton game, FA Cup game, really, really well. And I couldn't have listened to two better people, two better tacticians and analysts as well. So it was really nice to listen to as an outsider. Almost like this, it wasn't a podcast that we are on, just listening to it. It was very nice.
Yeah, it was good to have Jeff on there as well. I think he did really well. Um, on his first appearance, he said that he was nervous, but I thought he was excellent. And yeah, we talked about many interesting points. Also, and that podcast was interesting, as I said, towards the end of the episode as well, where since Chelsea were playing Brighton away back to back, it was always going to be interesting. So, yeah, but yeah, let's get into it. Could
Wait,
you?
wait, wait a minute. He said he
Yeah,
was nervous. Yeah, I heard he say that.
yeah,
It
he
did not
did.
sound like that. It
Yeah,
did not sound like that.
he didn't sound nervous at all, but yeah, that's what I told him too after the game. I mean, after the episode. So yeah, let's get started. So I read your thread about that you posted a few hours earlier about the Brighton Chelsea game. So could you just explore and explain what the initial setup was from Chelsea from an in possession standpoint, considering that Chelsea dominated possession with over 65%?
And and just to also note, I read yours 2 days ago. I think it's mostly yours that made me actually reconsider putting mine out because I didn't really feel like putting out one, and of course the result brought me down a bit. But yeah, it was quite an interesting game. Only for Brighton, they had, I think it's only one change they had from the previous game, which was Dunk being out and Webster coming in. So it was, and Chelsea too had some changes, brought in Noni, made Palmer the false nine instead of Nkunku this time. So so it was just I think it was almost the same thing in a way because we Jorgensen also started as well, forgot to mention. So we tried to build up a bit more the 4-2 build up Jorgensen forming the right centre back with Cole pushing out. So it's like if like we have seen it this season a lot from Maresca, right? That we the back four, the goalkeeper forms the back four with three of the defenders. Then Gusto, who already inverts into the pivot, stays there. So it becomes a 4-2. And Chelsea maintains that five-man in the attack so that they can be able to use that extra man of the goalkeeper to be able to play out of pressure. So, but this time, I think you mentioned it as well during the game and after your thread, that Jorgensen was more willing to play out shots than Sanchez was. Jorgensen was happy to invite pressure, and he was very calm in playing out. And a lot of people don't talk about that much about him. So it was good to see how, and it worked in the first like 20 minutes thereabouts, um, where we played out of Brighton pressure like a few times until I think Nani got injured. And when I noticed and I noted it because since then I did not see any, as well as the fact that Brighton scored not too long after. I didn't see any period where we played out of significant pressure to be able to bait the press and go forward and score. So it was really, really funny game in that sense.
Yeah, but before I just pick up on that, just a quick heads up that my voice may sound a bit different because I'm a little ill. So I think on audio as well, that would be a bit of a difference. But yeah, just to carry on what you were saying, yeah, there was a slight adjustment in how Chelsea built out from the back. We, as you explained, used a 4-2 build-up, whereas in the Brighton game we used sort of like a 5-1-3-2-3. And so I thought Chelsea's setup was better in the Premier League ties in the last one, the last game against Brighton. Yeah, so the initial setup was better, and I would say execution was also fairly decent. That's why Chelsea were able to dominate the ball, right? Well, one of the reasons, at least, was that Chelsea was able to play out of the pressure much better. Two reasons for that. One tactical, in that I thought Chelsea had better passing lanes to the wingers, especially from the right hand side, because since Gusto was inverting into the midfield with Caicedo, he was going to drag a Brighton player towards the middle, and that opened up so much space on the right wing where Madueke could not just stay high and receive the ball, but it could also drop little deeper to receive the ball, and he had time and space. So even if there was a man on his back, he was able to find, let's say, a free Chelsea man, and then even sometimes with Gusto, there would be nice combination play before they played out of pressure and the Brighton's press. That was one. Second reason was the personnel changes, with, for example, with Colwell and Jorgensen in the back line, you've got better players who can help play out of the back. So those were two of the main reasons that I thought Chelsea were able to play past the Brighton pressure. Um, and so then we were able to settle in our rested, settled possession structure.
The combination play of Gusta and Noni was great, right? It was really good.
Yeah, it was a bit reminiscent of last season, where we had nice combination play down the right, whether that was Palmer starting at right wing or even Madueke starting at right wing, with Gusto giving the support. Yeah, showed a lot of shades of last season. But yeah, once we got into the rest, or rather settled possession structure, could you just explain what the setup was and what you thought Chelsea did well and didn't do well?
Yeah, well, it was interesting because especially for that first 20 or so minutes, Brighton tried really hard to press us. So uh, the times we had, the times we faced a Brighton settled defense, because I think Brighton defended in a sort of a 5-4-1. Minte started as a right winger, but it seemed like he played like a right wing back throughout the whole game, because of the way he was tasked to really stay as the fifth man in defense, like Maresca does, as well. Like if you remember the City game, where Noni was tasked with that as well. But this time, Brighton actually put in better pressure on the ball than we did against City. So it was, so the times that where we could break through the pressure and Brighton sat back, it was a 5-4-1, and in that 5-4-1, Brighton didn't really give much away, to be honest. A lot of the time, we did. It's only until they scored that, the goal they scored with absolutely world class goal. Even though I have reservations about Chaluba allowing him to take that first touch, to be honest, but there were tactical nuances to there as well. So, but when Brighton were able to have that go and sometimes sit back, the normal way of the team that concedes, be able to sit back immediately when they concede, and the team that concede being able to attack the team that just scored them as well. Those kind of game states, nuances. So we saw that, but the only time we really were able to keep the possession, were able to recycle the play. We went a bit sideways, went wide, went backward, sideways. But at that point, I remember Enzo scoring within that period. We had two chances then, and it was one that we took it wide to Kukurea, where he crossed the ball, um, back post for Neto, who I think maybe could have shot earlier, but had that chance. Then it got recycled again. Then we got the cross, is it for Gusto now to Enzo, which was a disallowed goal, and which is still questionable. Premier League
The
referees.
Yeah, the one where we scored was the Enzo Fernandez one where I personally thought it was a very, very soft foul to call. And if anything, I was really
Crazy.
surprised that he called it instantly. When
Yeah, exactly. You get it. Like at least involve the VAR. At least like don't blow your whistle so early.
Yeah, because I've rarely seen that just generally over the past few years where that's generally been the protocol. So yeah, and I think there was a former referee who also came out after the game saying that even he thought it was a soft foul. But yeah, anyway, I think there are two things that I'd like to touch on, which you just mentioned there. Number one is when it came to Chelsea's in possession work, it's something I discussed with Jeff prior to the game as well, where we were trying to forecast what alterations Maresca would make for this game or ahead of this game. And one of the things that I mentioned from an in possession standpoint was I thought he would revert to a 3-5 or 3-1-6, but I also added along with that that the in possession structure does not matter if you do not have enough off ball movement. So it really does not matter what numerical superiorities you're able to gain tactically if you're not able to carry out the basic functions to uh to an expected standard. And that's what we saw again against Brighton this game, where I thought we did much better than, well, I say much better, but it's always relative. Relative to the FA Cup game, we did much better in terms of movement, but it was still not up to the standard that you need to defeat a team like Brighton, where you need your wingers especially to attack the space in the middle. That was when Palmer, who played as a false nine, when he would drop, the centre backs sometimes were willing to push up, and that would just create a massive hole in the middle of the defensive line. But we just didn't see Neto and Madueke attack that enough. I thought with Neto and Madueke, we were at least we had better suited players to attack that. But once Sancho came on, I thought sometimes he did try to
Mm.
attack the space, but he's just
Yeah,
not
he did.
that. Yeah, he did, but he wasn't quick enough, and that's just down to him not being that type of a player.
It was funny, like because when I watched the game, I actually realized that yes, like we actually tried to attack the space. We knew that the space is in behind, but for some reason we didn't attack it really well. Either the ball to the way to the guy running in behind was too short, or he makes the run. He doesn't really do much of it. It was a strange game, especially at the point where Sancho came on, and seeing later in the half the way George handled the situation. Could George have started for you?
Um, I think he did. I think you mentioned it. Yeah, it was you who mentioned it after the game where you said, or was it Jeff, who mentioned about how George did well to attack that space. Like in the little cameo that he had, there was just so much intent from him to make those runs, and he did make many of those runs. And I remember he made a run uh, like that where he attacked the space and James found him early on as soon as he was substituted. But yeah, I don't think. I think it's just too early for George to make that kind of impact, and considering I'm sorry, Maresca had to make that change in the first half. Sancho was the player to bring on, but yeah, funny enough, it's something Jeff mentioned with our press last week, where he said sometimes when one player would do something that the other player wouldn't uh, be on par, be on the same level, or vice
Yeah.
versa. And that's exactly what he spoke about with us attacking the space this time, where sometimes the pass wouldn't be made or sometimes the runs wouldn't be made. So yeah, I think this will improve over time, hopefully. But
And in that sense, and you're right too. In that sense, that's where we especially missed Palmer and Jackson and Palmer and Noni because those two, or the passer Palmer to them, and even Jackson to Palmer at times. Jackson made the passer. They read each. The connection is so strong that they read each other's runs so well, and like it's very underrated. Seeing especially how the passer to the runner was really a bad combo throughout the game against Brighton because the pass was too short. The run won't come it won't come quickly. It was so, but to you now appreciate those three, especially the way they understand each other, right?
That's actually a really good point. Because when you're playing Palmer as the false nine, what you're taking out of his game, or rather out of your team, is that specialist player. If you give him the ball between the lines, he's got good communication with Madueke and also Jackson, who missed the game through an injury. So yeah, that's a good point. And something else you touched on earlier was Mitoma's goal, right? Where this like that goal was so good where I rewatched I rewatched the goal multiple times from like different angles and
Didn't you?
yeah, I mean because the goal was so beautiful and then I was trying to analyze it from a Chelsea perspective. I don't think that's a there are some goals which you cannot stop. That was one of them for me where I don't think anyone could have done anything different. Like Mitoma was just in a flow state that moment. Where if you look at those three touches, there's no point where he lets slip in a way where you have a chance to put a foot in and win the ball. Like all three of those touches were class before the shot, and the shot was perfect as well. I honestly don't think there's anything we can criticize from a Chelsea perspective. Maybe just that I suppose they could deal with 1v1 situations a bit better.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like, to be honest, I also looked at it that way, but I don't know whether that's the tactical part because for Brighton to have that chance, they also had a +1 with Verbruggen, so that made Lamptey to push up, and that gave Gusto a headache. Who should I go for, Mitoma or Lamptey? Because that's where Mitoma now used the space to be able
Mhm.
to get that first touch. So I now wondered if Chaluba could maybe at least just knock him off or try to use. I think his body was in a place, even if it's a foul. Like now, we're trying to say is um, don't use conventional ways to stop him. But I think maybe a body badge, a something that not really stopping the board. I think it's more of contact to Mitoma that could have stopped that initial first touch. But it's still not like an easy thing to say, or I mean an easy thing to do. More like I'm
Yeah.
saying it. So, but yeah, but from there after the first touch, that was all. There was nothing Charlie Bell could do about it.
Yeah, but one point you mentioned that's actually spot on is the 5v4 that actually happened before the goal. So if you watch actually, as you said, when Lamptey pushes up, there's already someone who Gusto is marking. I think um yeah, it's Matoma. So Gusto has Matoma in front of him and Lamptey behind him. So he is kind of drawn to Lamptey. So there is that space between Chalobah and Gusto. But yeah, again, that goal from it, not just the goal, the run, identifying the run, attacking that space, um, timing the run, just everything about it was perfect. And it's something, if anything, Chelsea missed from an offensive standpoint.
Mhm. And also to be honest, Fahad too, as well. Like if you're defending that scenario, because it's like at that point it's numerical superiority, right? What do you advise? Because I think Gusto, thinking about it now, Gusto is definitely at fault because first of all, if you want to, I think it's better to allow the ball to go wide. That way you can shuffle everyone to deal with it and allow the ball to be cut through you like that. So what will you say? What will you advise in that kind of situation Gusto should be doing?
I think from a coaching perspective, I think most coaches would advise to always protect the center. But in this instant, I would actually give Malo Gusto a bit of leeway, only because the space which his positioning is not too off, if I'm being honest. Like he's still maintaining a decent gap with Chalaba, where it's not like a huge gap. Um,
True.
that's a gaping hole in the back line which Gusto should have filled in. it's just minimal positioning. So I find it really hard to criticize Gusto in any way here. And if anything, and with the Chalobah comment you made about, yeah, he could have made a tactical foul here, but I don't know. I find it so hard to throw much criticism or just analysis down Chelsea's defensive performance here, but just rather just being awe in what Matoma produced. That's just I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it what I was watching. So after this, Chelsea scored a goal, as we talk about, with Fernandez coming in that could have really just changed the game because you could see a bit of change in mentality or shift in mentality with Chelsea scoring there or thinking that they scored, but then immediately that being ruled out, the mood's lost, and then Brighton score from a second. So do you have any thoughts on the second goal?
The second goal was like there's some goals that happen that you just ask yourself what just happened, and that was how the goal was for me because it's in a way like okay, you can say okay, this guy made a mistake. Chalobah didn't clear the ball well, but you still ask yourself that the goal could have still been um, prevented from that stage. So because at times you can have moments where you can't clear the ball well, so you can say that that's not, especially with the number of players we had um, at the back at that time. But one thing to note is the way we didn't win any of our 50-50s. Not none of them were won. Sancho, as I think I analyzed Sancho before he came, and one thing I noted really interestingly was the fact that Sancho isn't lazy to get to the ball or to track back or to he does that. But what he doesn't do is puts himself for challenges. He doesn't go full in for challenges. He doesn't try to put his whole body there, try to win the ball back so much. He goes half-heartedly a lot of the time. So, and that was what happened there, where he didn't go full in and he got the ball. Then Ruta did so. Ruta did it the whole game. The fact that he was winning a lot of his 50-50s and he won that the 50-50 at that period, that moment, and the ball came into the box, and Kukurea was a bit rash too as well. And wow, it was a um, cluster of mistakes. So it was crazy. What do you think about it? So,
Yeah, I think what stood out for me was exactly what you said, where again, over here, I think it was less tactical and more about the basics, where you win your duels, and if you don't, that's the result of it. Because it was a scattered or messy bit of sequence, where it was just about sometimes clearing your lines or just about making sure that you were defensively organized because there were lots of back and forths and no one really got ahead of the ball. And once you did, there was always going to be a quick attack, and that's exactly what happened. And yeah, it was and Chelsea were down mentally there as well. So just resetting and taking a moment to get back into the game or try to get back into the game because there was still 10 or so minutes left in the first half. But Chelsea failed to um, just kill that Brighton tempo and going 2-0 up, considering what the result of the previous fixture was as well. I think put Chelsea in a really tough state. And did you think in that moment that the team was capable of getting back into it?
honestly, it was tough to see how we will come back into it because of the fact that we didn't have a suitable bench. There was no player that you could call confidently to change the game. So it was, it was, and we lost. We lost Nani. We already knew Jackson is out, Gil is out. So I didn't know, and with the way we were playing at that point, so um, I didn't see how it was going to happen. To be honest, normally at times, if I could see it in the way we play and all of that, sometimes the way we come out, but I could not see light at the end of the tunnel at that point.
Yeah, and it's interesting how it's kind of come to this point where I think it's worth spending an episode. Maybe we could do this over the summer, talking about Chelsea's transfer strategy over the past windows. And something I mentioned in an episode we did previously was why we loaned out certain players, and one of them for me was Joao Felix, where at the beginning of the season, one of our strengths coming in was that we had a very strong bench. But now you look at our bench
True.
and just review the comment that you said, where we don't have anyone to bring in. You're looking at you're looking at an academy player to come in and make a difference. I'm not saying that he's not of high quality. What I'm saying is he's not ready to make an impact now. But in the beginning of the season, we had those players, but we don't anymore, or we don't maybe trust them anymore. But it's more of the former rather than the latter here. But yeah, anyway, moving into the second half, what I'd like to discuss before talking about the third goal is Chelsea's high pressing strategy. So this is something we mentioned in the previous episode, where again, where we tried to forecast what changes Maresca would make. And I thought Maresca would revert to a high press system where he used his wingers, specifically his right wing. I didn't say that though. But he has shown that he wants to do it this down his right, where you use the right winger to curve his run from the opponent's left back to their left center back. So that would cut the passing angle towards the full back. Whilst the additional benefit to this was that Nkunku had an easier task, which was he just had to mark the opposition DM, which can be difficult if their movement's really good, but it's still a relatively easier task. Um, so yeah, I wanted to know what your thoughts on the high press was, and yeah, then we can talk about the third goal.
Okay, so for that, for the press, to be honest, our press was good on the day because Nani making that coverage on it forced Webster to go more central, and a lot of the time, in the first period of the game, we handled it well, won the ball at times, but we then began to struggle when the ball came into the feet of Welbeck and Rutter because those two, Brighton, they love to drop their strikers, their split strikers down the middle, drop them deep, almost similar to the Zerbi. Um, and they were holding up the ball well, and from there, they now started to find balls in behind to Mitoma, Minte. So I don't know why Colwell at times got the ball, was aggressive at times, but at times too, Chaluba and Colwell didn't really handle them as well. They weren't as aggressive as they normally would be consistently to stop that threat. So um, I think when uh, well, Brighton really killed it earlier because they scored two goals before you know it, before the end of the half. So we couldn't see, well, the press couldn't, because of the game state, the press couldn't be the same, yeah. So, well, it was quite interesting to see that because we stopped the ball to Lamptey, the curved run from Nani, and the way Maresca has done a lot of his hybrid presses, maybe not man to man, but zonal and man to, which transitions to man to man. A lot of the time uses the right wingers to either choose between know when to press between the left center back and the left back of the opposition team. And this time, Nani went full in on the left center back to stop the ball from going to the fullback.
Yeah, and I think my personal opinion is that this is Chelsea's best high pressing strategy. It's something which I think suits the team well as well. Where I think the wingers have the energy to make those curved runs constantly, especially Madueke and Neto, whoever features down the right. And so yeah, I thought execution wise it was decent, and then Brighton adapted by dropping Hinchelwood to the back line to form that 3-2, or rather a three base when they're building up, that is a three base defensive line with the two center backs, and that caused Chelsea a few problems because sometimes there would be a bit of miscommunication on whether Net and Nkunku should step up or not. But still, I don't think Brighton caused as much threat from there throughout the game. But it is something we saw for the third goal though, where they were willing to attract that high press and play through Chelsea, although not by short passes because our press was pretty decent. They don't mind going long, and they go long in two ways. One was they go over the top, which is they try to find their wingers behind the defensive line. That's what we saw for the first goal. But for the third goal, we saw something different where, I mean, it's something we see otherwise as well, is they play directly into their forwards who I think all three of them, that's Welbeck, João Pedro, and Ruta, they're all good with their uh, back to goal play and holding the ball
Yeah.
and linking the ball. I think they're pretty good at it. So yeah, the goal originates from there, a direct pass from Verbruggen to Ruta, or rather Welbeck. He combines with Ruta really well, and then Colwell struggles to clear the ball, which then is just capitalized by Minter. So, what did you think about the last goal that we conceded?
Cool. He's my guy for for how long? For as long as I know him or knew him. But one thing I don't really like of him, and we've seen it a lot recently, and this is the fact that he could just be he could be stronger in some situations. He could be more dominant in some situations. You can't really say, you can't really allow at that point that well, I think experience too helps, and I hope this experience helps for him or helps him because at this point, those points you either clear the ball really well and make sure you don't lose it because you don't get a lot of fouls going to be given your way as much as he thinks because just try and get the ball safely or to a safer place before claiming foul in that sense because um it's not really working at times the way it's too soft it goes down too softly and he can handle this is better. What do you think?
Yeah, you said this against West Ham as well, if you remember. For the first goal that
Yeah,
they scored, you said this exact same thing, which I just completely agree with. And yeah, I think he's just got to do better here. There's no excuses for him here. He was 100% not fouled. It was uh there's nothing going against him here where I clearly mentioned like, with the Enzo Fernandez incident, if we want to call it that, that he didn't make a foul there in my opinion. And I think that's a fair argument. But with Colwell, there's just no denying that there was just no foul play here. But yeah, Chelsea just struggled to get back into the game at all. Barely created any chances, and if anything, didn't create anything. They had 0.54 XG according to SofaScore in that game.
truly
Sorry.
embarrassing. That it sounds like the worst XG score. Is that worst XG score of the season?
But for Chelsea, it might just be, I'd need to double check that, but I'm pretty sure it would be because Chelsea didn't get a shot on target as well. So I
Wow.
don't think this has happened anytime during the season. So
It's crazy too as well because I don't
yeah.
think any team has also I don't think any team only like now only three teams have shut us out away from home. We used to be good away from home in the first half of the season. Now it's a stun now it looks like we're better at home than away.
Yeah, no, so I'm just checking FB Ref right now. Yeah, the point 0.5 XG against Brighton has been the lowest this season. The second lowest was the Bournemouth away game, if you remember that.
Yeah, where
Yeah,
Nkunku scored. Yeah.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. So yeah, pretty interesting. But yeah, let's almost wrap it up then. So the mood in the Chelsea camp is low. It's pretty low because we've been one of the most underperforming teams um, since the start of December. I think we were in 14th or 15th position for points accumulated since December, since the start of December. So it's been high time for Chelsea to turn this around. And up next we play Aston Villa. So any thoughts on them?
Cool. It sounds like I go from fry pan to fire because of the way Villa play and transition. You can exploit that, but ah, can we um can we do that? A lot of our players need to get into form to be able to really make win this game against Villa, and hopefully we do. But it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be tough. What do you think?
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. They're willing to. I'm pretty sure they will be willing to sit off Chelsea with in their mid block because Chelsea have just lacked creativity over the past few games, especially. So just give the onus to Chelsea, really. Sorry, even Brighton were willing to do that, right? Where they were willing to sit
Yeah.
back in their 4-4-2 and most of the time or 5-4-1. So yeah, and Villa are coming back of a bit of a mixed results period or past month. Where last game they played really well against Ipswich, dominated chance creation, but drew the game 1-1. Before that, they won 2-1 against Tottenham in the FA Cup. But then before that, they lost 2-0 to Wolves. And then there was a 4-2 victory over Celtic, a draw against West Ham, or loss against Monaco. It's been a bit on and off for them, not entirely been going their way. So there is an opportunity there. But with Chelsea's current trajectory, you just never know, I suppose. But yeah, let's hope for the best.
It sounds like I want Chelsea to surprise me with a win, and and that's how it looks for me. And I hope we do take the points because if you look at Rashford, Asensio, some of the signings,
Yeah.
they look quite dangerous on the break. So it's going to be quite interesting the game.
Yeah, should be a good game, and let's hope Chelsea have a good surprise in for us this week. I'd say the biggest surprise they could give is, let's say, they score many goals, which you haven't seen in a while with good chance creation. We keep a clean sheet, which I can't remember when we
True.
kept the last clean sheet. Should be a long while back now. Yeah, so yeah, let's just hope
Hmm.
for a surprise performance and surprise
Upstairs
win.
win.
Yeah. Just need a win, and I think that'll just lighten the mood much better amongst the Chelsea fans as well. Um, yeah, with everything else going on behind the scenes.
I'm telling you, that's a whole episode on its own.
Yeah, I know. That's why I didn't discuss or I didn't push the conversation there because it's not something we can discuss over a few minutes. But yeah, we'll keep that aside for another episode.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think we have done a lot today too, and it's quite another interesting episode so far.
Yeah, good to have you back on, and if that's all, we'll end the episode there.
All right. Okay, we'll move. Subscribe everyone to us and continue to listen to the blueprint. See you later, guys.
Yeah, thank you for the guys who are following us. I can see like a minimum number of listeners we have per episode, and hopefully this will just keep growing. And as Sun said, keep following our work and liking and subscribing to our content. So thank you guys. We'll see you all next week. Bye bye.